3 years into our marriage, I thought I was the problem. The tests, the pills, the quiet blame, I took it all. I told myself to be patient, to be good, to try harder. But then I found something. A single document misplaced in a pile of insurance papers. It changed everything. It made me see that I wasn't crazy, I wasn't broken, and most of all, I wasn't the only one keeping secrets. If you've ever suspected that something just didn't add up, stay. Because what I uncovered didn't just destroy my marriage, it exposed a truth that had been hiding in plain sight all along. If this story stirs something inside, you don't forget to hit subscribe, leave your thoughts, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. You're in the betrayal room, where the lies end, and the truth begins. Maya once believed Ethan was a man who listened. He didn't talk too much, didn't perform affection in big, sweeping gestures, but that quiet confidence was what made her feel safe at first. Early in their marriage, Ethan would say things like, "I've always wanted a real family. Nothing would make me happier than a child." He made it sound so simple, so sincere, and Maya believed him. They started trying within the first year. She went off birth control, tracked her ovulation cycles on a color-coded app, changed her diet, even bought fertility tea from an Instagram ad. Every month, she'd hold her breath, then mark another red X on the calendar. Another disappointment. At first, Ethan was kind, encouraging. "Don't stress about it, these things take time," but that faded quickly. By the second year, the silences between them grew heavier. The way he looked at her started to change, less gentle, more clinical, like he was measuring something in her and not liking what he saw. "Have you gone to see someone?" he asked one evening, not looking up from his phone. Maya blinked. "A doctor." Ethan shrugged. "You know, just to make sure everything's working." From that point on, the pressure started to mount. Subtly at first. Ethan never yelled, never accused her outright. But his tone shifted. The questions came faster. The suggestions became more pointed. "You should try tracking your temperature. You're probably not timing it right. My coworker's wife went on hormones. Maybe ask your OBGYN about that." And always the unspoken message behind every word. "This is your fault." He never once offered to get checked himself. When she gently brought it up, Ethan scoffed. "I don't need to. Everything's fine on my end." His voice had that finality, like the matter was closed, like asking again would be disrespectful. Maya didn't push. She didn't want to rock the boat. So she went to appointments alone, let herself be poked and scanned and medicated. She swallowed the hormones, endured the side effects, and smiled when Ethan asked how it went. He never came with her, not once. By year 3, something in her began to crack. She was tired all the time. The medication was wreaking havoc on her body. Her hair was thinning. Her mood swung like a pendulum. But Ethan didn't seem to notice or care. What he did notice was the lack of results. "I just don't get it," he muttered one night as they lay in bed back to back. "We've done everything. Maybe you're just too stressed. That affects fertility, you know." Maya stared at the ceiling, silent, numb. And then came the breaking point. It was tax season, and she was sorting through their documents, insurance forms, medical bills, receipts, when one folded sheet caught her eye. It was partially tucked behind an envelope from their health provider, crumpled, almost deliberately hidden. Her fingers froze. It wasn't her name on the top. It was his. Ethan Charles Winfield. Date of procedure August 2nd, 2014. Procedure bilateral vasectomy. Maya's hands trembled. She read the words again. And again. Her brain rejected what it saw. 2014. 2 years before she even met him. He'd been sterilized the whole time. The paper slipped from her fingers onto the floor. Everything blurred: the years of trying the pills, the guilt, the nights she cried herself to sleep while he turned away. All of it based on a lie. He had known all along, and he had let her suffer. Maya didn't confront him that night. She didn't even speak. She simply picked up the paper, tucked it between 2 magazines, and slipped it into the bottom drawer of her desk. Her hands were still shaking. The urge to scream, to demand answers, boiled beneath her skin, but instinct told her to wait. Something in her, a new, unfamiliar voice, whispered that silence was more powerful than rage. For now, she watched him that evening quietly, like a stranger sharing a house with someone she once thought she knew. Ethan was in his usual spot on the couch, beer in hand, half watching a game while scrolling through his phone. He didn't look like a man carrying a secret. That scared her more than anything. Over the next few days, Maya played her role. She made dinner, asked about his day, laughed when necessary. Ethan didn't notice anything different. If anything, he seemed more relaxed, smug even. He made a point to mention that his coworker's wife was pregnant again. They weren't even trying that hard, he said, then paused, waiting for her reaction. She smiled faintly and said nothing. At night, when he fell asleep beside her, Maya lay awake, eyes open in the dark, trying to piece together just how deep the deception ran. He'd sterilized himself years before they met. Why didn't he say anything? Why pretend to want children? And why put her through all of this, the testing, the medication, the guilt? It wasn't just betrayal. It was a controlled narrative, carefully constructed and executed. She realized he needed her to believe she was the broken one, because if she wasn't, then the lie would crack. The truth would spill. And Ethan didn't like losing control, so she gave him what he wanted: control, or the illusion of it. What he didn't see was that Maya had stopped being the woman he could manipulate. Something shifted in her the moment she saw that paper. And now with each day, she stayed quiet. She gathered strength. She began documenting. She downloaded every appointment she'd been to over the past 3 years and logged every prescription. She noted Ethan's comments, the ones that chipped away at her confidence, the subtle jabs masked as concern. It's probably something genetic. Maybe your body's just not made for it. Have you thought about freezing your eggs before it's too late? She wrote them all down. She started locking her phone, changed her laptop password, installed a secondary cloud backup, and synced all her notes there. Ethan was too careless, too confident to notice. Then came the breaking point. One evening, Ethan walked into the kitchen holding a small envelope. His expression was unreadable, but his tone was casual. "I made an appointment for us," he said. "Fertility clinic. Top-rated. My coworker's wife swears by them." He slid the envelope across the table. "They'll run full testing on both of us. No excuses this time." Maya stared at him. Her heart beat faster, but not out of panic. This time it was clarity. So this was his move. He never intended to go through with the tests. He would find some reason to cancel, to blame her again, to make her doubt herself. But now she had what he didn't, the truth. She picked up the envelope and nodded. "Okay," she said. "Let's do it." He looked surprised, then smiled. "Good." Finally. She walked away with the envelope in hand, but in her mind the pieces were already falling into place. She didn't need the clinic. She already had the proof. What she needed now was timing. Maya wasn't sure yet how she would use it. But she knew one thing with certainty: Ethan had written the first act of this performance. She would write the final one. The appointment Ethan scheduled was set for Friday morning. He confirmed it twice, left the envelope on the fridge, and even offered to drive. Maya nodded, smiled, and went along with it. She had no intention of going. On Thursday night, she waited until he was asleep, then opened his laptop. He never logged out. His inbox was filled with work emails and discount newsletters, nothing unusual, until she saw a flagged message thread labeled Sabrina. Archive. She hesitated. That name wasn't new. A woman he'd mentioned once in passing years ago, with a vague shrug, old relationship. Didn't end well. The thread wasn't recent, but it stretched back years before Maya. Back when Ethan was still in Arizona managing a sales team, and apparently involved in something much more serious than he ever let on. There were pictures. One in particular, a woman holding a pregnancy test, smiling nervously. A follow-up email, short and cold. We've discussed this. I'm not changing my mind. Another procedure is scheduled. This is final. Maya closed the laptop gently, the pieces locked into place with chilling precision. It hadn't been a random choice. Ethan had done this before. He'd faced an unplanned pregnancy, rejected it, and sterilized himself to ensure it never happened again. But instead of sharing that truth, he'd entered a new relationship, this one with Maya, built on the illusion of shared goals, family, children, a future, all of it fiction. And yet he'd gone further. He hadn't just hidden the truth. He'd weaponized her longing, used it to control the rhythm of their life. Every time she faltered under the weight of disappointment, he stood by, silently calculating, preserving his lie. Now he was playing his final move, forcing a joint clinic visit to reaffirm her supposed defect. Maya knew what would happen. He'd feign participation, then make her the scapegoat once again. Maybe he had an excuse ready. Maybe he'd bribed someone. It didn't matter. She wasn't going. Instead, Friday morning, Maya left the house early, dressed like she was heading to the clinic. She even texted Ethan, "On my way there now. See you inside." Then she turned off her phone and drove across town to her lawyer's office. She had made the call 2 days prior. Her friend Julia, a former classmate now working family law, had listened without interrupting. When Maya finished recounting the vasectomy, the false clinic appointment, and the years of emotional coercion, Julia didn't speak right away. Then, "This is calculated abuse, right?" Maya had nodded. Now, sitting across from Julia's polished desk, Maya placed the photocopy of Ethan's medical form on the table. "This is the centerpiece," she said calmly. "The rest is just scaffolding." Julia leaned forward. "You're not just filing for divorce, are you?" "No," Maya replied. "I'm going to bury him with the truth." By noon, she was home. Ethan wasn't there, likely waiting at the clinic, playing out his performance. She walked through the quiet house and opened the closet in the guest room. Inside was a box, her just-in-case box. It held every receipt, every prescription, every appointment summary she'd filed away over the years. She scanned them into digital folders, named each file meticulously, and uploaded them to a private drive. That night, Ethan came home angry. "Didn't even show up," he said, slamming the door. "Do you even care anymore? I was there for over an hour like an idiot." Maya kept her tone steady. Something came up. "I'm sorry." He stared at her but said nothing. The moment passed. Or so he thought. What he didn't see, what he couldn't begin to suspect, was that his house, his image, his version of the story was already collapsing. Quietly, efficiently, from the inside out. Maya didn't rush. She knew Ethan would spiral if she pushed too hard too fast. He thrived in spaces where he could control the story, so she made sure he still thought he was writing it. A week after the missed appointment, Ethan changed tactics. He returned to the old charm, cooking dinner one night, bringing home wine the next. He even suggested they take a weekend trip, just the two of them. Maya played along. She smiled, agreed, let him pour her glass after glass. Let him believe she was softening, that she still wanted to fix things. But every night when he fell asleep, she planned. She didn't want a courtroom scene. That would come later. What she wanted, what she needed, was to strip away the illusion he had built. Not with anger, not with accusations, but with precision. And an audience. So she started with a dinner invitation. They had hosted before. Ethan loved showcasing their marriage to friends and co-workers, the image of stability, of success. He especially loved bringing people who admired him, who'd nod along with his stories and laugh at his jokes. Maya sent out messages to 10 of them. Casual, friendly, just a small gathering. Nothing fancy. Come by around 7. She didn't mention the occasion. She didn't need to. Ethan was delighted. "This is great," he said. "Let people see we're still going strong." After everything. He meant the infertility, of course. The silent failure he had never truly shared. The silent blame he had handed to her instead. Maya nodded. "It'll be a night to remember." She spent the next 4 days preparing not the food, but the files. She organized every medical document, the emails from his ex, the vasectomy report, and the clinic confirmation Ethan had received but never shared. She had them all printed, bound into neat folders, one for every guest. And then she prepared the video. It was a simple slideshow, photos of their marriage hospital visits, a timeline overlaid with Ethan's own words. "It's not me, it's probably you. You're not trying hard enough." Followed by the document, the date, the signature. She embedded a recording, too, the one from 2 nights ago when Ethan, slightly drunk, had said, "Look, if we can't have kids, it's just biology, all right. You were the one taking all those meds, not me." He hadn't known she'd left her phone recording on the kitchen counter. He'd been too busy patting himself on the back for sticking through it. By the time Saturday arrived, Maya wasn't nervous. She was clear. At 6:45 p.m., the doorbell rang. One by one, Ethan's friends and colleagues stepped in, holding bottles of wine and easy smiles. Maya welcomed them graciously. Ethan, in a blue dress shirt and practiced confidence, played host. "Everyone, thank you for coming," he said once the appetizers were set out. "It means a lot. We've had a rough few years, but we're getting back on track." There were murmurs of support, glasses raised, toasts made. Then Maya stood. "There's something I want to share," she said. Her voice was calm, almost warm. Ethan blinked but didn't interrupt. Not yet. She picked up the remote, pressed play. The television lit up. And in a matter of seconds, the room went silent. No one spoke. As the photos rolled, the statements played, the dates aligned. Ethan's face paled. The moment the vasectomy form appeared on screen, complete with medical seal and date, August 2nd, 2014, his mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. Then the audio played. His voice, his words, undeniable. When the screen faded to black, Maya stepped forward. She handed out the folders one by one, each with a note inside. "This is the truth he never shared. I thought you should know." No one said a word. Ethan stood, frozen eyes darting, breath shallow. "Maya," he started, but she didn't look at him. She faced the room. "I spent 3 years believing I was broken," she said. "I wasn't." Then she turned and walked down the hall into the bedroom and closed the door behind her. Ethan didn't follow. The next morning he was gone, but the performance had only just begun. Ethan didn't come home that night. At 2:13 a.m., Maya heard his car start in the driveway. A single sound, distant and faint, like the click of a door closing behind a man who had finally realized he had nowhere else to go. She didn't get up. She didn't text. There was nothing left to say. The following morning, she opened her inbox to a single message from him. No subject, just 6 words. "We need to talk. Please call." She didn't. Instead, she forwarded the entire thread to her attorney. By noon, Julia had filed the initial motion divorce on the grounds of fraud, emotional coercion, and intentional concealment of medical history. The evidence was already compiled: the recordings, the documents, the witness list from the dinner party, all of whom had received their own follow-up email that morning, summarizing exactly what they had seen and what they might be asked to testify to, should it come to that. Ethan had no idea how fast it would move, because he didn't know Maya anymore. She wasn't operating from emotion, she was executing. In the days that followed, Ethan tried. He called, left voicemails. He even sent flowers. Once he came by the house and stood outside for nearly 10 minutes, but he never knocked. Maya watched from upstairs, silent, unblinking. A ghost in her own home, finally learning how to haunt someone back. When the formal papers were delivered to his office, he exploded. He emailed her directly long, rambling paragraphs about how hurt he was, how humiliated, that she'd ruined his career, that she had no right to make his medical history public, that what she did was calculated, cruel, and malicious. Maya replied with a single sentence. "Your deception had consequences. These are them." She didn't hear from him again for 5 days. Then came the letter from his attorney, a hastily drawn-up counteroffer proposing quiet mediation and a non-disclosure agreement. Maya declined. Quiet was never an option anymore. By the end of the month, Ethan's image had begun to fray. One of his senior clients had withdrawn from a long-term contract citing personal trust issues. A junior associate from his team who had attended the dinner party requested to be transferred to a different manager. His inbox, once flooded with congratulations and opportunities, grew eerily silent. But Maya wasn't watching him anymore. She was rebuilding. She began therapy, real therapy, for the first time in her life. She told her parents everything. They cried. Her mother said, "I thought he was so kind." Maya didn't reply. She just smiled faintly and said, "So did I." She deleted every fertility app from her phone. She replaced the vitamins in her cabinet with regular multivitamins, unsubscribed from parenting newsletters, threw out the ovulation tracker in her drawer. The bathroom cabinet had become a shrine to shame. She was tearing it down piece by piece. But one thing, she didn't erase the evidence. Because court was coming, and Ethan had no idea that the real storm hadn't even started yet. By the time Ethan retained a second attorney, the damage had already been done. His first legal counsel had walked away quietly after reading through Maya's file. The second, a younger, more aggressive type, took the case with misplaced confidence. He believed Ethan when he said it was all a misunderstanding. "My wife's emotionally unstable. She's trying to ruin me." But belief didn't last long against documented truth. Maya had compiled over 200 pages of records. Every doctor's visit, every prescription, voice recordings of conversations where Ethan subtly shifted blame, copies of insurance paperwork listing his procedure long before they ever met. The lawyer halfway through the binder reportedly said, "We're not fighting a divorce. We're fighting a pattern." Ethan began showing up to court in pressed suits, dark circles under his eyes. He'd lost weight, though he tried to make it look intentional. He smiled too often, spoke too carefully. Maya, by contrast, said little. Her presence alone did more damage than any outburst ever could. The judge took immediate note of the evidence. In the initial hearing, she raised an eyebrow at the words fraud and coercion. Ethan's attorney objected to the characterization, calling it personal and emotional dramatization. The judge replied, "If these documents are real, what you're looking at isn't drama. It's deception, legally actionable and deeply damaging." Outside the courthouse, Ethan avoided reporters. He had once courted attention, a rising executive, charismatic, well-connected. Now he ducked his head into cars and hissed at his assistant to shut it down every time his name surfaced online. Maya, however, wasn't speaking to the press. She didn't need to. The story had legs of its own. A woman silenced for years, manipulated into thinking she was broken, finally exposing the man who built his entire marriage on a lie. It was too powerful to stay hidden. Ethan's workplace placed him on indefinite leave 3 weeks into the proceedings. A polite way of saying, "Don't come back." The board didn't appreciate being associated with scandal, especially not one that involved falsified health declarations, intentional emotional harm, and the possibility of public testimony by over a dozen witnesses. Ethan tried one more tactic. He sent a letter, handwritten, delivered to Maya's lawyer. It was long, remorseful, filled with phrases like, "I never meant to hurt you," and "We both made mistakes." But beneath the apology was a proposition: walk away, quietly split assets, 50-50, sign a mutual non-disparagement clause, and leave the past in the past. Maya read it once. Then she instructed Julia to decline politely but definitively. There would be no quiet ending, because there had never been a quiet beginning. The next phase was the final one, the full hearing. Public, on record. No more redacted names, no more sealed documents. Everything Ethan feared most was now inevitable. The day of the hearing arrived like a storm, without thunder, no noise, just pressure. Ethan arrived early, dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, a briefcase in one hand, and a carefully constructed smile on his face. He looked composed, but those who knew him well would have recognized the signs, the tightness around the jaw, the way he adjusted his cufflinks every few minutes, the way he kept glancing at the door. Maya entered exactly 1 minute before the hearing began. She wore a navy dress, minimal makeup, and carried nothing but a slim folder. No lawyer flanked her, yet Julia was already inside preparing notes, but Maya didn't need backup in the hallway. She passed Ethan without looking at him. He didn't dare speak. Inside the courtroom was quiet. The judge, a woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair and a reputation for zero tolerance for posturing, called the case. Winfield versus Winfield. Divorce proceedings with fraud allegations and motion for punitive damages. Ethan's attorney stood trying to preempt what was coming. He attempted to argue that this was a private matter turned theatrical, that the wife's emotional response had turned a domestic disagreement into a public spectacle. The judge cut him off. "You may want to be very careful with your language, counsel," she said coolly, "especially in a case where your client is the one who failed to disclose a permanent medical procedure that directly contradicts the stated basis of the marriage. This is not theater. This is premeditated omission." Then she turned to Julia. "Counselor, your witness." Julia didn't rise with flourish. She stood calmly, opened her folder, and said, "We'd like to begin with testimony from Maya Winfield." Maya took the stand without hesitation. She didn't cry. She didn't raise her voice. She simply told the truth, one piece at a time. She described the years of trying to conceive, the tests, the medications, the doctors who kept saying you're healthy, maybe your partner should be tested, the responses from Ethan. "That's unnecessary. We don't need that. The gaslighting, the guilt, the slow erosion of her self-worth." Then she spoke about the day she found the paper, how everything fell into place, the timeline, the lies, the absolute certainty that Ethan had known from the start that she could never get pregnant, not because of her, but because of him. She didn't accuse, she explained. There were no fireworks in her voice. Just wait. At one point, the judge leaned forward, eyes narrowed. "And at no point did your husband disclose this information to you? Not even during fertility treatments?" Maya answered, steady as stone, "Not once, Your Honor. In fact, he insisted we keep trying even when doctors recommended testing him." The silence in the room thickened. Julia submitted the documents, certified copies of Ethan's vasectomy, dated, and signed 2 years before he met Maya. The insurance claims, the clinic records, the audio clips short and undeniable. Ethan's attorney objected to the recordings, citing privacy concerns. The judge overruled him. If he spoke those words in his home to his wife during the time she was undergoing invasive medical procedures because of his dishonesty, then yes, we'll hear them. When the recording played, Ethan's voice filled the room. "You were the one taking all those meds, not me." It was over before he realized he'd lost. The judge called a recess. When the court reconvened, her ruling was swift. This court finds that Mr. Ethan Winfield engaged in intentional deception that directly impacted the marital agreement. The concealment of his sterilization combined with psychological coercion constitutes both fraud and emotional abuse. Therefore, the prenuptial agreement is voided. Mrs. Winfield will retain full rights to the marital property, and punitive damages are approved. There was a pause. A flicker of breath from Ethan. And then, furthermore, this matter will be referred to the State Board for review of Mr. Winfield's professional conduct and possible disciplinary action should it be deemed appropriate. He didn't look up. He didn't argue. He simply sat there, shoulders sinking, hands folded, as the life he built on manipulation on performance began to fall apart from the inside. Maya left the courtroom without speaking to him. She walked out into the afternoon light, not smiling, not triumphant, just free. It wasn't revenge. It was release. In the days after the ruling, Maya didn't celebrate. There was no champagne, no victory dance, no "I told you so." What she felt wasn't triumph. It was something quieter, heavier, something like peace, still unfamiliar, still a little fragile, but real. Ethan moved out of state within 2 weeks. She heard it through a mutual acquaintance who used the phrase starting over with too much sympathy in their voice. Maya didn't respond. She no longer reacted to Ethan's movements. His story had lost all gravity in her world. What she focused on instead was reclaiming space. Her home, once filled with silent accusations, and the ghost of what might have been, began to breathe again. She repainted the walls, donated the furniture he picked out. She removed every photo, every wine glass from wedding registries, every trace of the life she thought they had. She bought a new bed, not because she needed one, but because she wanted to sleep in something untouched. Therapy continued. Some sessions were quiet, others were not. She told her story, slowly peeling back each layer like scar tissue. Her therapist never rushed her. That in itself was healing. One afternoon, while sorting through old emails, Maya found a draft she had once started to write to Ethan. It was dated 2 years ago. The subject line read, "Please just tell me the truth." She never sent it. She deleted it now. No hesitation. Her body, once swollen with chemicals and bruised from injections, had healed. Her skin cleared. Her eyes softened. Her laugh returned in pieces, small and sudden, as if remembering how. And then came the letter. It arrived by mail. No return address. But she recognized the handwriting. "I'm sorry, I really am. I don't expect you to forgive me. But I never thought you'd go through with it." Maya folded it, once placed it in a drawer, and never opened it again. Some things weren't meant to be resolved. They were meant to end. Months later, Maya stood in front of a class of college students, guest lecturing on emotional autonomy and legal boundaries in relationships. It was something she never thought she'd do, but the invitation had come from her therapist, who now taught part-time. She spoke not as a victim, not even as a survivor, but as someone who had lived through a lie and refused to let it define her. "I used to think silence made me strong," she told them. "Now I know truth does." The room was quiet, and for the first time in a very long time, Maya felt no need to fill that silence. It was enough.